welcome to Astrology with Andy. Today we have another chart and chat where I interview someone through their birth chart so we can get to know them better in a unique way. Today's guest is a drag legend, icon, and pioneer who competed on the first season of RuPaul's Drag Race and the first season of RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars and has been a fan favorite since day one. As if a successful drag career that spans over 2 decades weren't enough, there's more. 3 studio albums, 2 web series, The Browns, which you can watch on Amazon Prime, and Queen with a Cause, which you can watch at queenwithacause.com, as well as a cabaret show. I am here with the creative, funny, talented, environmentally conscious, and one-of-a-kind Tammie Brown. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Are you now in Texas full-time?
Just for the week.
Oh, I see. So is Long Beach still your home base?
I'm going to get back to Long Beach. Yeah, I had decided it's time to go back. This is not going to fly here.
I gotcha. Are you back like in Corpus Christi where you were born or somewhere else in Texas?
I was born in Corpus Christi, but I live up the road, right up the road. It's about 30-minute drive. It's called Rockport Fulton. And I'm here in the town of Fulton. It's a beautiful peninsula. It's a forest, but I just feel it's time to get back to California. I just have a hang up on having to rent somewhere and not be there because of the traveling I'm doing.
Gotcha. Is astrology something that you're into or that you follow? Do you know about your birth chart, or is this something that's kind of new to you or that is more on the periphery?
I guess we could say it's on the periphery. I know about astrology. I know I'm a Virgo. I know that we checked. A friend of mine has a book that has everybody's specific days. And my card was the devil on the book, which I was really tickled about that. Because when I started meditating, I've been brought up Christian, so you don't really dabble with that kind of stuff in Christianity because, it's the devil's work. Then I started meditating. I've been a Buddhist for over 21 years. I chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo and have been practicing Nichiren Buddhism with SGI. It's a great practice for anybody. In that practice, normally you focus on your inner growth and stuff like that. But astrology, I find it very interesting. But I started meditating and I was using crystals. And then I started meditating because I do know that the law of cause and effect works, and also visualizing. And I've always been doing that. This takes time and a lot of effort, but things take time in life. I started meditating that way, and the interesting thing was the devil kept coming out. So I had to go, shoo for that. First of all, when I was thinking about the money sign, the American money, there's all this controversy. If you think about that, you're this and that. Anyhow, so that kept manifesting. And then I've been fascinated by the devil for a while. Then I had to think, I don't have to be afraid of this. Then come to find out through another astrology book that I'm tied to the devil after I was making the Rag Queen collection, my little dolls. I make my soft sculptures made with my previously worn designer nylons for all you kinky cats out there. Yep. But I was doing that, and I was like, it's so interesting that the devil keeps popping up, and I'm open to it. Now I'm more open to it too, and like whatever. It's not anything bad or good. It's just what it is. And then the devil means so much on the cards, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And one of the things that's really interesting about your chart that we're going to talk about is that you actually have a pretty significant Scorpio influence in your chart, which is about the darkness and kind of bringing things to light. So we're going to talk about all of that too.
This is funny. So my father's father, my grandfather, he's a Scorpio. My mother's a Scorpio, and my mother's a Scorpio as well. And I have a dear friend who's actually looking up my chart as well right now, Jenny. She's really into this whole stuff and visualizing. We're on the same chart. We're about the same age too. And she was born in the same hospital I was born. But she also, I was reading her and I was like, you have Scorpios in your house. I know you do. So she pulled up her chart and there was 4 in her house as well.
Oh, wow.
But I can tell Scorpios right off the bat. And I can pretty much kind of tell by their behavior, the Scorpios.
Yeah.
I do get mean and very passionate about things in that sense. I just never worked with the sexual aspect of being a Scorpio, and I need to open up to that.
Well, yeah, and we'll talk about that because there's you have a lot of planets in the 8th house. So every birth chart is divided into 12 houses, and the 8th house is the house that belongs to Scorpio. And in your chart, you have Jupiter, the Sun, Saturn, Mercury, and Pluto all in the 8th house. And a little bit, we'll talk about kind of how that manifests and what that's all about. Okay. One thing I want to start with is, because I always like to start talking about the sun in a chart, because while there's more to us than our sun, the sun is about our identity, our sense of self, how we like to shine, our ego, healthy ego. And with the sun in Virgo, there is this very judicious, exacting, detailed, analytical, very self-critical part of Virgo as well. And I'm wondering, as an artist and a performer, how does that perfectionism help you or also potentially hinder you? How do you navigate it?
I just go with it. Now I tell myself to calm down and just put it out. I always put my material out there, even though it's just like, okay, but it's annoying. I've talked with other Virgos about this. It's just you're constantly trying to make everything the best, the best, the best, the best. And I'm very critical about everything. I'm nice to people and everything, and I take care of them. But I mean, I'm very critical of myself as well. Everything, I'm really into detail oriented. I've been told this from people too. That's one of my highest qualities, is that I do pay attention to the details, which I do. But it can be hard. Like with my drag, I don't see everything as even. When I'm painting my face, I should be done, but it's taking me forever. I'm still there perfecting everything, are the minor details when it comes to everything has to be done perfectly. And artwork as well. Like with the rag queen, sometimes I have to pull back and say, okay, they're not actually supposed to be all so perfect. So just it's folk art. So pull back.
How does that Virgo-ness play into planning something like a cabaret show, for example?
Ooh, for me, I went to the school of Ike and Tina Turner. So at the school of Ike and Tina Turner, you get out there and you perform and you do your best and everything is perfect. And I've studied all the greats as far as actors. Josephine Baker is one of my other favorites. It's Tina Turner and then Josephine Baker. And I love Sylvester too, the disco singer.
Yeah.
Mind you, these are all African Americans, so pay attention, everybody.
Exactly.
Because so much with this cancel culture, ridiculous bullshit that's driving me crazy. But no, as a performer, I just give my best and I don't worry. I mean, there's times when you're thinking, oh, there was something wrong. I don't really put too much stress on myself as an entertainer. I just go out there and do my best job. And I don't worry about everybody and what they've done. I've just worked too hard, and I have this, I like entertaining. And my show was always based around what Tina Turner did in her concerts. That's how I thought about it. Mm-hmm. And then now to talk in between and to realize that I'm actually a comedian. Now I know I'm a realized comedian, but I didn't. Before, I never thought of myself as a comedian. It's just I'm funny, naturally funny. So to me, it was never to think that I was a comedian, But I have gifted that I'm naturally funny or I'm naturally witty. So that's, people misunderstand me because I'm real sassy and I've always been sassy, but I'm not reading. Like, for example, Manila Lazan will keep, are you reading? No, girl, I'm not reading. I'm just being sassy and fun. And this has been all my life that I've been told that I was sassy. When I focus as an entertainer, I want to engage. It's to uplift other people as an entertainer, as an artist. And I like to be spot on and I like to direct the stage that way.
And one thing about Virgo, it's funny because recently I was on somebody else's podcast answering listener questions and somebody wrote in saying, I'm a Virgo and I'm so tired of hearing that we're organized and anal about stuff. And I said, well, one thing about Virgos that is often left out of the picture is that they are very funny, but it's a very highbrow humor. It's very observant humor. It isn't just lowest common denominator. Would you say that kind of describes your style of humor, that there's layers to it?
Oh yeah, everything is always, I mean, not everything, but my comedy, that's why I say, like I've said on RuPaul's Drag Race, I relate with Andy Kaufman. I relate with I'm very detail oriented in everything. And that can come out as funny too, because there's a whole major detail. And the sarcasm is so funny. That's what's so funny is my sarcasm as well. The sassiness comes off as so sarcastic, but it is well thought out. I think everything else, the jokes. And people sometimes think, oh, he's just running out there, running his mouth. And no, they think I'm a little out there. If you're listening to me, you're going to see that I'm really articulating. There's a whole painted picture. But too many people have such a short span of attention usually. And with the fame, that has been a major issue because people just think, wow, he's out there. If you listen, I'm not out there. I'm actually detailing everything and I'm really quick.
Yeah, a lot of wit and very observational. And I also think it's one of those things where, I mean, I'm not trying to shade anybody, but I think to get your humor, you have to also be socially aware. You have to have a sense of what's happening in the world. And
like I could placate too. There's some of those that I could do conferences for if I wanted to, but now I'm just to the point where I couldn't do that. But to a certain political party, I could do placate too, so to speak, a dark Republican party, so to speak, and what they want, if I needed to, and pretend to, but be all making jokes and they would never know.
Right, because it can go over their heads.
Yeah, and they'll think that I'm on the same side of their party, but I'm not. You know what I'm saying? Because I paid attention to all the details of what's going on and what they're doing and stuff. Or what either side's doing personally. I don't, to be honest with you, both sides I think are problematic. But where are the good Republicans is my question. And why does it have to include so much money all the time, everything about money, and throw everything under the bus just for some fucking money?
Yeah, and later on, I want to talk about your moon in Sagittarius because Sagittarius is all about social causes and very humanitarian, and I know that's a huge part of who you are and what you communicate. I want to come back to this idea about Tina Turner because I'm just wondering, I know that she was a huge influence for you. Was that influence strictly about her style and aesthetic, or was there a part of her life story and her persona that you identified with growing up?
It was her aesthetic, to be honest with you, first of all, that started. And then I was really drawn to the aesthetic and the energy. When I seen the movie, What's Love Got to Do With It, I was 14 and I knew that's what I want to do. I'm an entertainer. I would like to the light came on, epiphany, so to speak. And I want to be an entertainer. And at that time in drag, one would ask you, who do you do? That's a stereotype. You do somebody. So I always said, as a little white boy, I was doing Tina Turner, and African American. So I don't want any of this cancel culture bullshit. It's cultural. It's not, she's beyond boundaries, Tina is. And most artists are beyond boundaries. It doesn't have to do with race or color or whatever. Not that so much of that's put on now, So I'm having major issues with it. And I want to fight a cancel culture, a counter cancel culture. I think it's time for that.
Well, I'm so glad you bring that up because I think that brings up this really important point about cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation. Wouldn't you say there's a pretty fine line between those two things?
I would say so, because I don't put things on to be koogly moogly around with stuff or making fun of things. I never really did that to make fun. And as a child, I always looked at when somebody would say something mean about, oh, look at that fat fuck over there, or something like, excuse me, I'm being very grotesque. I'm kind of crabby today, but or right now I just woke up from a nap, so that puts me in a mood sometimes. But I don't look at people that way. I always look at people from the inside, or I always have this feeling empathy for people, or feeling this kind of feeling. And cultures as well. I like cultures. Like now I would not wear an Indian headdress, but I always thought they were so beautiful, like a Midwest, like Lakota and Sioux. I really like those sort of Indian headdresses, but now I wouldn't wear one. And, maybe I'll privately make myself a paper one and wear it in my house, but nobody will know. Oops. No, but I really do. I do like that culture. And I wear indigenous pieces that I find in different places that they sell to me. So I wear the belts. I like fringe and I like things like that. And I think it's beautiful. And it's influenced my life. Like in Africa, for example, with the patterns and stuff, they'll use a Christmas pattern, a Halloween pattern, or a Valentine pattern with a spring pattern or whatever, because those are not their holidays, or those are not sort of that thing. So that's mixed in. And that's been an influence in my art. And this, what we're in the Western ideology. Mm-hmm. Well, when it clashes with other ones from around other cultures and outside of the American bubble, it mixes around.
It goes back to the idea of knowing the person behind the artistry, because I know that you're somebody who's always advocating, for example, on your social media very often about indigenous rights. So I think it's also the fact that I think anybody who knows you and your artistry and your career knows that you come from a place of really advocating for these people and you care about them. And I think, again, people need to really get to know the person behind the artistry.
And speaking of through Tina Turner is how I found out about the religion, the practice. I could tell that she was someone who has faith in the movie. Everything she's done has been put about faith. Of course, it's been the Ike and Tina, but it's always been also the struggle of making this comeback. But there's also been the whole her spirit as a spiritual person, and the chanting, and she talks about all this kind of stuff here. She talks about astrology. That's what I was drawn to. And it's funny how now that I'm also becoming one of these people that people come to for spiritual advice. People are coming to me now for helping out with environmental causes. And I think, well, that's such a beautiful thing. But that was an influence from Tina Turner. And also with Tina Turner, all the details I learned about all sorts of designers and all sorts of cutting edge photographers and world of fashion and everything else through her. Because it's just not just sexy legs and mini skirts, but they were all leather skirts, or those were little chain nails. They were not actual beads because of her sweating. So there's all these different things that were cutting edge the whole time. that you learn that opened up a big door for me. And VH1 was really influential in the 90s for me as well, because they had the 8-track flashback and they had all those game shows that were oriented towards music and stuff now that they don't do anymore. But it was highly influential. And I discovered so many disco artists and everything else through VH1. It opened the door. And I've always noticed that I've always sort of been on a rhythm. Mm-hmm. There's a rhythm that I'm on where I've always been protected. There's the sense of protection.
Like spiritual protection?
Spiritual protection, or just physical protection, or the right place at the right time, although things do take time. And I've always noticed about myself too that I've always been able to know a trend before a trend will happen. When I was younger, especially, there was always that. I would be, when someone's thinking it somewhere else, someone else is thinking it. But I was always in tune to that.
And what's very interesting about your chart is that your sun is what we call conjunct, meaning a few degrees away from the planet Jupiter. And mm-hmm. Jupiter is a planet that rules Sagittarius. So when a planet is close to your sun, it's kind of embedding or infusing your sun with its qualities. And Jupiter is a very visionary planet. It's the planet of having an open mind and having a sense of the larger picture. So this whole visionary thing that you mentioned is very Jupiter. It also has to do with, among other things, travel and having a humanitarian focus that we'll talk about a little later. But what I want to focus on now is Jupiter's side, that it's about fun and having a good time and laughter. And I know, for example, that when you were in high school in the late 90s in Texas, you went to prom in drag.
Right.
And that to me is a very Jupiter sun thing, because Jupiter ultimately says, you know what? Life is about having fun. You have to enjoy it. Can you walk me through that process of, it wasn't like LA in 2021. It was Texas in the 90s. How did you navigate what I would imagine was not the most tolerant environment in a way that you still said, well, this is who I am and I'm going to do me?
Well, I've always been myself. My mom finally testified to Milk when Milk Queen was visiting for my 20-year gala. And we were having dinner. And then she finally said that I had always followed through and been myself always. There was no putting me into a box or anything, so to speak, which I was really happy to finally hear her say that. But I knew my place in high school. For example, I never would volunteer for, on the TV, they would show Big Brother programs and they would do commercials for that. Well, I always thought analytically too, that's for molesters or what are going to, and then if I do that as a gay, as a gay kid, be a Big Brother or a gay person, which I've always known I can encourage people. That's something I've always known. I've always been resilient. I've always been this kind of happy-go-lucky person. Even though I'm really hypercritical of myself, I'm still always ready to help everybody and help out. Sometimes it's too much of a problem for me having so many. I said one of my biggest problems in life was having so many friends, because I'm such a good friend. And I'll drop everything pretty much for friends. I have too many best friends. But anyhow, I knew my place in high school. I would never volunteer for certain programs and different things. But towards my senior year, actually the tables turned. People were asking me to come be on student council. And once I was in student council, I would get the phone and call people and get them to donate things and stuff. And I was doing whatever I could do. But every day I got called a slur. It was okay. I knew I was living my fantasy. And that's all that really mattered to me. I was living my disco fantasy, my Tina Turner wildest dreams, and that's what I was going to do. And the funniest thing about society too was that this is the late 90s and I started really getting into Tina Turner, but not even so long, 10 years before or whatever. That gap wasn't even that long that she was all over the place and still all over the place, but not so much on our American charts, which was just so weird. It felt like I was listening to something that was always further away or I was part of something that was in the past when it wasn't even that far away.
Oh, yeah, I totally get that. And were you able to, at any point in your life, meet Tina Turner personally?
Never met her. They were illegally scanning the show or whatever they do in Europe. Somebody that was on the tour, this last tour she did 10 years ago now or whatever, that farewell tour, somebody was on there in the wardrobe and they took a book and had her sign it for me. And I used to write the Oprah show consistently. And finally the Oprah show several times replied, but they took Nina to meet Tina, not Tammie.
Nina who?
Oh, some girl, or her name was Sheena, some fan, they had flown her over.
Oh, I see. Oh, I gotcha. I'm sure that people have probably shown Tina Turner your performances. I mean, I'm sure. Wouldn't you think?
I don't know. I just don't know. And I've even had a publicist that was supposed to help with something and he didn't do his job. And it's just whatever.
Yeah, I hear.
Hasn't happened yet. I still pray for her though. I chant for her and her husband.
Didn't she recently wasn't there a documentary recently about her?
Yeah, it just came out and she's saying, she's done. So I can respect that if that's what it is. But I've even written a script or I have an idea for a movie that I would want with her because she never really got to have this movies. she wanted to do more movies, and that never really came to fruition for her as much, you know. And so it would be fun to make a kind of a comedy with her.
Yeah.
There was these movies with Mae West and that Mae West did at the end of her life. She did like Sextet and Myra Breckenridge. They were these very kind of corny camp movies. And I would like to do something like that with Tina, kind of loosely like that.
Wow, that would be really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking about Jupiter, which is close to your sun, Jupiter is also the teacher. It's humanitarian. And with your sun in the 8th house, you know, the 8th house is about shining the light on the shadows and whatever is dark. It's a metaphorical cave. When you have the sun in the 8th house, there's interest in things that are mysterious or taboo. And a lot of your work casts a light on social justice, on environmental concerns, whether it's plastic or palm oil. You know, a lot of your artistry is about teaching about social causes. Was that always a part of your drag? It seems like it was more maybe like in the second half of your career.
I like that the second half. The environmental stuff is started more with that I had more of a voice and everything too. It started more and more. And then once I got into more study of different things on my own, first I started with the orcas. So maybe you can say the second half of my career. Mm-hmm. I would say the first half is at the beginning over there with now after RuPaul's Drag Race, because I had been working so hard. Primarily my career was just to really push for drag. I mean, I fought for it. You have to think of it too. I started in 2000 when drag was, I said I wanted to be a drag queen. I came out to California to study fashion, which I changed the degree to high fashions, like Luella Parsons changed her career around, which we can do. Every self-proclaimed person does. And people need to be able to be more self-proclaimed, and people need to respect that, because most people that are geniuses and whatever are self-proclaimed. Most rock stars and most engineers and everything that have created many pop culture things or billionaires, they are all self-proclaimed.
Absolutely.
They didn't go to school for that. Okay, when I started doing drag, it wasn't the most popular thing. That's all. It was just not the most popular. And I came in with the mindset of a celebrity as a star. And I came in with that kind of that I was a rock star, and that I wanted to placate to punk rock. And I had this kind of a little bit more of a punk rock edge and reality to it. I was more of course, there's always this more in your face I think people have when they first start drag sometimes. Kind of a more on the edge, or a bit of anger comes out too. But that didn't last very long, and that's kind of a growth and learning. Mm-hmm. There was not that I attacked or anybody, but I would attack the stage. I would attack people if they weren't really paying attention. Not attack physically, but with my performance. If I knew they were not really getting it. And then I wasn't just doing, I do love money, and I'm working on money and my career and my job, and it's very important, and I need all this, and it's something that I'm really working on. But I did it because I had to prove that you can do this career. And lo and behold, I mean, it's in the stars that it was manifested. I was at the right place at the right time, so to speak. I mean, I haven't fully crossed over exactly what I want. I mean, I have great cult success, but I'm ready to go to the next level. I'm really working on that. That's my whole thing right now. Mm-hmm. Right now, we're at the butt end of what happened with COVID. So I'm kind of back into a place I was 4 years ago right now, but I'm still traveling, and I get to do, I'm still being interviewed. So there's still energy there. But
Absolutely. And you know what's interesting too, by the way, Jupiter is the planet that rules the concept of luck. And people who have Jupiter and the sun very close to one another, like you were saying, are people who find that things just kind of end up working out. Not that they don't have to put any effort. Of course, they have to work hard, but there's a sense of you happen to be, as you were saying, in the right place, the right person, and things just end up going from one success to the next.
Right.
When was the first time that you realized consciously that you were now on another level as far as your popularity? Was there ever a moment when you went, wow, okay, things are starting to evolve here?
When I was here in high school, I did my first freshman year. I got into theater and choir, and I did the first half. We had a block system, so 4 classes, and the next half you'd come to the next 4 in the spring or whatever. And I took the theater class, and then there I was in the spring in another class and doing some other things. I wasn't in the class, but they came for me and asked me to come be in a play. I didn't have to audition. That's when I first started realizing, and I realized I could work circles around people. If I set myself into doing something, I could always spin, I don't know, I always knew there was this energy, I would like to say, that can spin circles around people. Like I can do it, get the job done. I'm very, I guess, vivacious or whatever, Now I think it's kind of leveled off. I don't feel that as much anymore. I feel very youthful always, but I'm 40. I don't feel like I have to show anymore. I just stay in my lane, do what I like to do. And I'm really privileged to have this life. But things do come to me. My drag, some of my first wigs, some of my first garments, the reason I'm vintage, all that was given to me. I never really sought out a vintage look.
Oh,
Never.
tell me more about that.
When I started, I worked as a cocktail waitress in drag. I was really ambitious to get all my jobs in drag, and I would go out and get different jobs. Like I got a brunch job at Hamburger Mary's. We were the first brunch. The brunchettes in Long Beach were the first brunch before Voss and all these other people. Let it be known, there was 4 of us that started those brunches at Hamburger Mary's. I mean, there was brunches places, but it wasn't the same. We started the brunch that was at Hamburger Mary's in Long Beach with Jules from Long Beach, Psychedella, and a queen named Sabrina and myself. And we started the brunch, the brunchettes. And now it's all around the whole, everywhere, global, so to speak. But I went to work as a cocktail waitress, and I had when I went to the premiere night of the party, I had a beautiful vintage dress that I bought, a little cocktail dress, a fun one that I'd seen at an antique mall that I liked. So then Gustavo Avilares, he works for Jet Rag in LA and he pulls the clothes for the stores. He started delivering me dresses and dresses and dresses and more dresses. The wig that I got, I used to wear this bob wig that I like. So most of my wigs have all been gifts.
Wow.
Most of my wigs have been gifts. Wigs from Vanity's given me wigs. I will give a shout out to Integration because they're my friends, but Wigs from Vanity. Delta Work and Psychedella, they gave me wigs. It came out they pulled it out of their pickup truck, actually.
Really?
But I just like to say pickup truck because they had a bed and they store stuff in the bed. But, they gave me these wigs. And so that's how the wigs and all that just kept growing and keeps growing. And people are always giving me things. I'm very fortunate in that area to constantly be given garments and stuff. And I've gotten Bob Mackey's, I've gotten dead stock, I've gotten so many different pieces.
Wow. And so you were saying, even talking about this idea of being in the right place at the right time, that when you were in high school, you were approached and basically told, hey, we want you in a theater production instead of having to audition? Yes,
for Midsummer Night's Dream. I just never saw myself as acting. I'm a performer. I always wanted to be a performer. That's just a performer. I'm a performer. I'm a great host. Not a host like on stage. I host myself, but I don't like to host other people at a drag show or whatever. That's not for me, or host. I don't feel very comfortable doing that. But I'm a great host for myself, my own show. I'm a great performer.
Yes.
I like to take care of things and the details. And also I'm a great, if you were to come to my house, I host you at my house. I make sure everything is perfect for you. It's going to be the hospitalities, and that also ties into my performance.
Right. The Virgo touch.
Yeah. My whole family were known for hospitality like that. And for sure, my sister and I, it's also part of our upbringing.
As far as the evolution of your drag career, is it fair to say that Tammie Brown is an extension of who you are? Is Tammie Brown a character? How has Tammie Brown evolved? Or is it just evolving alongside you?
Well, we're always evolving. I am the character. It was never a separation from myself in the drag. When I did my drag, I never wanted all the padding and stuff. And now I don't even wear breasts anymore. And I like that they're able to, people don't have to wear breasts. And I like this whole trans movement where it's back to the indigenous roots or whatever, where you just live in the body you have and you're comfortable with that. I mean, I've always been very androgynous. Mm-hmm. I feel balanced. But it was kind of difficult for me because I'm not trans in a sense. So I don't feel I feel the duality of male and female, but I like being a male. I like being in this body's fine. And I like being able to dress and drag and live my fantasy. But it's true, I can play both sides if I need to, and there's a versatility. And that's been in American history with indigenous culture and everything. All those leaders and shamans and groups and tribes and stuff were gay or two-spirit or transgender, and they played the different roles according to whatever they needed to do for the tribe at the time.
And if I recall correctly, wasn't part of the idea that if you were two-spirit, it was one of the highest in the hierarchy, like you were kind of revered because you were able to manifest or display both masculine and feminine simultaneously. Is that right?
Yes. Correct. And it's amazing. And that was something that saved me as a child too, I was always having aha moments. And being raised in Mexico, I'm studying Nahuatl, which is the Aztec language. In fact, I have class this afternoon. Studying with them, I don't know how I ended up also in the right place at the right time in the school I went to, because all the information that I needed was there. The indigenous culture, we went into different ones and ones from the past and different things, and we talked about them. We didn't talk about present day, but we talked about each culture. And I learned so much about them. And then I've been talking with my instructors and other students that are in this class, and they weren't taught the way I was taught. Because I've always been bragging about Mexico, how they do know about their culture, their indigenous culture, because we don't know anything. We know stupid white man, John Hancock. This whole sign yourself away to a contract and signing something, you just get fucked by signing something. It's not right. They're able to fuck you over because you signed a paperwork, but they can turn around, fuck you for millions of dollars. You're signed to it when they really put a stink on what they did, like the whole student loans and all this. It's just not right. So if I signed a contract to a villain, the villain's able to do everything to me, but I can't go back on my contract because I signed something. That's hogwash. That's not right.
There's so many countless stories, especially of artists and especially singers who, go into the industry being promised all these things, only to later find out, oh, you mean I signed a contract that I only get 2% of my earnings? I mean, it happens a lot. You're absolutely right.
All the time. And it's not right. And I'm really passionate, angry. I want to focus on my career right now and doing what I have to do to change this. But I think there needs to be a renaissance, and this needs to go away. It is not right that you signed yourself to something that can screw you for the rest of your... Oh, well, you signed it. No, that's wrong. It's evil.
Yeah, and especially a lot of times it's, well, I might have signed it, but it wasn't explained to me.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's just wrong. It's just like, okay, so you want me to sit here and eat shit all the time?
Exactly. I totally hear you.
So I signed that, and I can't get out of that. And everything in life is an illusion. And the fact is, it's an illusion. It's a dream. I believe that personally.
Well, and that's a perfect segue for something else in your chart, which is that you have your sun in what we call a square aspect, 90 degrees away from the planet Neptune. Mm-hmm. And Neptune is all about fantasies and dreams and kind of being in your own world. And, one of the things about Neptune is that it can be a little bit naive initially, and then it has to kind of learn as it goes through life. But I'm wondering, with the sun square Neptune, especially when you were younger, did you have a very vivid imagination where you had all these imaginary friends, where you're kind of in your own world? Or how did that play out for you, the idea of fantasy?
Oh, I was always playing flower shop. I was out in the bushes. I was out in the forest, not afraid. I was playing in the cedar trees. I have a little book that we did that I want to release, but an illustrated book. I was out there playing with the snakes. I wasn't afraid of these not playing with snakes per se, but I was playing flower shop, and I would play house out in the bushes. And I would always fantasize about certain fabrics, or I was thinking a way to make something into something. I was always thinking about making something to make money, I don't know, or some kind of decorative ornamental, snow globe, or, just creative that way. Like to pretend I was a witch and things like that, like to clean house. Later studying the Freud and psychology a little bit is this, that we got too many whippings, my sister and I.
Ah, I see. Oh, because you grew up in a more religious household?
No, not religious at all. We did go to church but they didn't really force it, but we kind of placated to my grandparents and their things. My parents was a shotgun wedding, my mother's, because they were forced into it. The grandparents had a very strong push on the family of moral code and idea from, old white Christian BS. That's why I like the whole devil aspect. I've gone to different churches and different things, and that's why I was sort of afraid of these things. But it's nothing to be afraid of. Like there's the Lechu, there's that one down in Brazil or Southern American practices. They practice the devil, And then even if you study Lucifer, it means light.
A lot of times when I tell people that I'm an astrologer, and I also read tarot cards, not for as a profession, I just do it for friends. Uh-huh. But a lot of people who are raised in church kind of struggle with, well, can I have a reading with you? And I tell people, there's nothing evil or satanic about any of it. It's just energy.
Right.
That's all it is. And it's about what you attribute to it.
It's like, I really like trolls. I like the idea of trolls and Ninja Turtles. I'm that kind of fag. I'm not unicorns and all that. So, or fairies. Oh God. The whole thing with trolls is trolls are from Norway. Their origin is from over there, but they were called trolls, these beings or these people, because they didn't practice Christianity. Christianity called them trolls.
Oh, really?
I like that. And then Jackie Beat also said too, like devil worshippers, that they call people devil worshippers or Satanists because they're not Christians. So there's all this judgment, and that really plays a major part in everything and it's not right.
You raise a very good point about religion being used to marginalize people. An intelligent woman would just be labeled a witch, and it was a way to, I think, clamp down on anybody who would question the system.
Correct.
I'm wondering how much of your identity as a performer and or a drag queen do you think is about questioning the system or trying to dismantle the system, or at least raising awareness that we are in the system that can keep us oppressed in many ways.
Yeah, I don't think I'm really trying to dismantle the system. I think that I'm trying to just spread awareness to what's going on in the system. I know in reality, it's life is a yin and a yang. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. There's always darker before the light, always light before the dark. So, I mean, it's going to be that's life. That's the way it is. We're not all ever going to get along. We should try to get along. I mean, that would make a lot of sense. And we should all, as humans there's none of this. I like to listen to, I can't think of her name right this minute, but I'll come to me. She's a writer, wonderful writer. But she was saying, like, this is how I always thought. There's all these movies like people from Mars coming, aliens, they're all coming here to zap us of our energies. Well, I started thinking about it as I get older, and I've been, through my 20s, I'm like, human beings are the ones that we're going to deplete everything we got, get it in some rocket ship, because we haven't even developed ourselves yet to really fly on natural energies. Or if we do have them, our governments aren't allowing us to use them for personal use, because the FBI and the CIA are nasty. And that should be dismantled. And they should pay like the Catholic Church for everything they've done.
And speaking of that, also churches should pay taxes.
Yes, they should. Unless they're a real lay organization, but most of them are not.
And this goes back to the idea of, I was saying a lot of Scorpio in your chart. One of the things that you have in Scorpio is a very sensitive angle called the midheaven. The midheaven is where the 10th house of career begins, and yours is in Scorpio. And that goes back to the idea of shining the light on things that are dark. And I think you have this really unique combination in your chart of the midheaven in Scorpio and all this stuff in the 8th house, which again, the 8th house and Scorpio are deep and profound, and they shine the light on things that a lot of people don't want to look at. But I think because you have also this moon in Sagittarius and Jupiter conjunct your sun, you do it in a way that almost takes away the fear and kind of pokes fun at it. And through laughter, you get people to think about things. And I think you're one of the few drag performers, I mean, I really can't think of anybody else, at least who's, I'm talking about very big names, who does that. Do you ever hear from people, whether it's like, because of you, I now read the ingredients. So if I see palm oil, I don't buy it. Like, do you hear about the effect that you have on people?
Yes, I hear that all the time. And I do my best to reply to everybody on Instagram. And that's where I get my fan mail list, through there mostly. The most thing that I get is people find me so encouraging and inspiring. What I've had to come to terms with is the queer word. Queer as in weird. I'm not weird. You might be eccentric. I'm crazy, but not the kind of crazy that spell their name on the wall with feces. I pay my taxes, and I live by pretty much the rules. I live a heteronormative in my mind kind of ideology too. So I don't know why, but it is the way it is. And I am queer eccentric, whatever, so to speak. Or actually, I'm more indigenous. I would like to say older, like Xochipilli, the Aztec god or deity, the prince, flower prince, and there's a female counterpart, but he protected the male homosexual. I've been praying to that, to bring that out when I chant too, that bring Xochipilli, because I do know that I'm a conduit. I'm good to help people. This is what I get. Thank you so much. Yes, about the palm oil, and thank you so much about always being able to encourage others. I get that a lot. And spiritually too. Spiritually, they want to know about my practice, what I do. So I'm always shakabukuing people, introducing them to Buddhism or encouraging them to practice even their own practice.
Which also aligns a lot with that moon in Sagittarius, because the moon is about what do I need to feel fulfilled. And Sagittarius is about exploring. It's about travel. It's about foreign cultures. It's about learning about other cultures. And with the moon in Sagittarius, there's also a lot of interest in philosophical questions like, what is the meaning of life? Why are we here? And even learning about different cultures and religions and being like, well, I'm going to take a little bit from here, a little bit from there, a little bit from there. But part of your purpose and role based on this chart is actually to be a teacher. And with the 8th house, which is all about healing, it's almost like I think you're a conduit for helping other people heal. Part of that, though, is through this very Jupiter thing of laughter and helping people realize that life isn't supposed to be so serious. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Well, it's not that serious. I mean, anytime we can die. That's what it pisses me off about. We're signing these stupid contracts, especially in this country, that bind you into being fucked forever, in a sense. Just because you signed a fucking piece of paper. Well, they dissolve as well. Everybody dies.
Yeah. Have you encountered that in your career and in Hollywood? Like, have you had to sign something that looking back on it, you're like, ugh, why did I sign that?
My major thing and my stubbornness is this college loan that I signed up for, and my college is no longer accredited. It's a proven thing. It's been sued. It's no longer even there. The whole company folded. And it was known for this, for bringing lower income people in, signing them on. It was on 60 Minutes. It was known for getting those Sallie Mae loans and all that stuff. Well, the school's no longer accredited. So things I was promised is no longer there. Although I am doing my fashion career, all that is happening now. But I mean, it's all happening in my merchandising. And I have the most unique merchandise. I've been told that from everybody. It's the most unique, the best, the most fashionable, the most everything, because it's artistic. It's not commercial BS. And I don't think people come into thinking like that about as an artist. Usually they're not that deep as artists, a lot of queens. Drag can also be superficial, which that's very annoying to me. I'm not into I do like to shop, but I shop because it's about my presentation and how I look. It's not about, oh, let's go and shop and buy everything. And that commercialism is not really how it is for me. It's about my looks and how I present myself and the aesthetic.
One of the main things that people buy from you, it seems like a lot, is your face wipes.
Yeah, the facial impressions. We're going to call them that, Monica said, because she says the other sounds like toilet paper. So
good point.
So the facial, and that was kind of almost a little bit of sort of kind of between me and Michael, my guitarist. He's a Taurus, by the way, very stubborn. But it seems that I can ride that bull, and then I can also grab that scorpion back. I'm good at fighting. It's really crazy. And I'm going to make it, being perfectionist as a Virgo, I'm going to perfect fighting. And then something else I realize now too is I'm just going to lead by example.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, when I come here to Texas and I'm around these people that sometimes my friends, they get a little more stagnant in their ideals because of the state here. And then some of them are Republican in this. Well, they voted for Trump, which I find rather disturbing with climate change and everything that's going on. This whole issues, the racism and everything. I find it really disturbing as a human being. If I lead through example as being a good person and leading from example by these messages that people are sharing with me and calling me, because I get other boys, straight boys telling me too, oh, you encourage me so much. I've never met anybody. I had someone psychoanalyze me the other day and I was kind of hesitant and scared and I picked all the colors. I picked certain colors for certain, then the whole chart came out that I'm a good person, that I'm a good friend, that I'm all these wonderful things, which is the truth about me, and that I like to tell people the truth.
Virgo is all about just the facts. Virgo isn't necessarily blunt or rude, but Virgo also isn't about all the flowery nonsense. So a lot of times I say that an evolved, healthy Virgo, if they're telling you something, you can believe it.
Or for example, when I come here, I get out of my comfort zone and I get in with these other people that are talking this and that, and it's like, I don't feel so comfortable. The other night we got into an intoxicated conversation. The emotions were coming out, but we weren't really feeling this way to each other, but we were pushing out this political stuff. There was no malice to each other. We were going to stay friends, but it was just too dramatic for me. It was too much emotion put in with that. I don't want to be around this kind of stuff anymore.
Yeah, Virgo really dislikes messy emotionality that is unproductive. Virgos don't thrive on drama. And I would think that with your drag career being 22 years and ongoing, and I get the sense from what I read online or whatnot, that you are very beloved in the community. And I think you can only do that for 2 decades if you are a genuine person, right?
Right. I am beloved in the community, right? Yes. And I like that. It's a beautiful thing. I'm kind of accomplishing my Tina Turner dream. In a way. Yeah. I've become a good disciple or whatever. She was a good mentor in a sense, although I'd never met her and everything. But I study the history. I study people from the past. I like to study them and see other artists. I like what they did. And other artists live outside of the box and they live these other lives that are really cool. And you create the fantasy. You create what you want to do.
Yeah, and that brings me to The Browns, which is on Amazon Prime. And I'm originally from Argentina.
Oh.
And there's a director from Spain, Pedro Almodóvar,
claro,
who has done a very long career, but became very well known in the 80s for the movie Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown. And Pedro Almodóvar films are all about irreverent humor and melodrama. And when I watched The Browns, I got a very Pedro Almodóvar kind of vibe. Can you tell us a little bit just about The Browns and how that came to be and the writing process or the creative process behind it?
So, ¿eres latino, entonces?
Sí, soy de Argentina, de Buenos Aires.
Argentino. Argentino. Hay que decir argentino, hay que decir mexicano, hay que decir de puro. Eso de Latinx, que asco.
No me gusta.
That is horrible. It's just clumping them together more.
Yes, and I was actually talking to a friend about this recently, how that term, Latinx, was, as far as I know, was not even created by a Latino person. Don't tell us what we need to be called.
Yeah, it's wrong. I'm really fighting it. I'm really opposed to it. I'm getting chills right now. It's really, Mexicans are Mexicans. Certain parts of Mexico, when I go, it's so different than, like, Oaxaca is different than even Mexico, and the whole country is blanketed by just the Mexica, the Aztecs, you know, or which I feel very connected to. I'm connected to them. I know it from past whatever. That's why I'm studying the language too, but it's just not right. And then I hear something has to do with trans kids, them, there, they, that's created this kind of thing with the cancel culture, the Latinx. Also, it's very scary, like all of them, there, and all that stuff, because if you look back, you know, here I am with my knowledge, the Bush said them or they for the enemy.
Oh.
And put this on. Then there was a horror film, it's this one called Them, and it's these ants that are radioactive. So just really, people should realize, why are we using these words to be independent, whatever, fluid or whatever you are? I'm fluid, okay? Let's just face the facts. But just this whole thing is like, you're using words that are been used to vilify or to place things in a certain category that's not right socially.
That's really interesting.
For vilifying. FYI.
But go ahead. Yeah. So talking about the Browns.
Okay, the Browns. Thank you. I've been making my own independent little films, but I was started to work. I wanted to create a show. And then the timing was right. I got a call, and I've been making content, which are uploading on YouTube. But I can't keep up with this whole, I'm not going to sit here and do like, oh, hi, I'm twiddling my thumbs, and today I'm working. There's only so much you can talk about. I'm not into this BS new way of people, and then upload that to YouTube. And now we're viral. That's just bullshit. This is a fantasy. This is something we're creating an illusion. I want some substance, not just a bunch of BS. I can't keep up with that. It costs too much to make these productions I want to make. And I don't edit stuff. But anyway, so long story short, John Mark reached out to me, really likes what I was doing as well. He wanted to create a little show. He sent me a script of some ideas. And I said, oh, this is right up my alley. Because the way I write my jokes or my ideas, it was on the same tone. And speaking of Pedro Almodovar, I always, before even just by watching the films, I was already analyzing them in the same, the colors a certain way, the soundtracks a certain way. They are melodramas, which I find kind of annoying sometimes. Some of them are kind of boring to me, some of the movies. Uh-huh. So I totally understand all that going on. And it has the beautiful, colorful aesthetic because of the Spanish influence, of course.
Yeah.
Which that's why Mexico and Spain seem to, the Latin countries especially Mexico, they mesh so well together. It's there's that whole aesthetic, and I can relate with it. So he just presented it to me, and it works. And then he said he wanted to create this. We have a format, an outline. I learned my lines. Now I can actually say I am really acting, because I study with Paige, who's a female writer. She plays Ethel on the Browns, my sister. We have people of all ages in there. We're not ageist or sexist, which I've never been an ageist, and I've never been a sexist. That's one thing. I've never been a toxic masculinity or sexist. And now I'm actually living, I always wanted to be in a novela. That was my whole thing. But an agency at the time, Lemon Lime Dragon, said that, oh, you can't do it because you're too white. And I'm like, that's just BS, because there's a lot of white actors that are down being in the telenovelas. Half of them, or soap operas, they are white looking.
Yeah.
So, but now it's all kind of coming to fruition.
And so did John Mark give you the concept of the Browns and then you wrote it jointly, or had he written scripts?
He wrote scriptlets and outlines of what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And it started on Instagram. But it was some of the jokes and some of the stuff that was written was, oh, this is right up my alley. Something I would write or something I would do that I was interested in doing, with little comedy sketches that I was doing and thinking about and talking about for years with my creative partner, Rod Barroso.
Oh, okay. So it sounds like you have kind of people like in your inner circle who you've collaborated with for decades.
Yes. Always. And then, of course, you find the few that come into your life and leave. I mean, that happens, or that have their own problems and they're not your friend. Mm-hmm. They have their own hang-ups.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, some people come and go.
And then also, I know that I also have a power to vanish. Sometimes people, if I don't want to work around it, I just kind of tell the universe, I said, I don't really want to do this anymore. And it starts falling apart.
Oh, wow. As we kind of start wrapping up, just wanted to ask you about some things in the past that seem significant and then talk about what's happening kind of moving forward. I'm wondering, and this is a bit of a while back, but in the year 2005, you had a very interesting transit where the planet Pluto, as it was moving through the cosmos, was at a certain part of Sagittarius, and in doing so was 90 degrees away from your sun. And Pluto is a planet that has to do with death and rebirth, metaphorical, transformation, transmutation, phoenix rising from the ashes. And this was really in effect for you in the year 2005. And I'm wondering, is there anything about that year that stands out as a time when you kind of had to reinvent, or there was a significant shift for you?
That was the summer that I booked my first commercials, all the commercials, and I started acting. I mean, I was with a commercial agent. I was always a featured extra. Joaquin Phoenix has hired me. I worked with the one who did the Batman, the gay guy, the director that did the Batman #3.
Joel Schumacher.
Yeah, I worked with him. I mean, all this kind of stuff. I would say there was a bigger transition after Drag Race. I felt that I went through season 1. I went through a major slump with that. That was really in 2009, all that, because nobody knew who I was really. It wasn't enough momentum. And then it took a while to finally get, after All Stars is what really helped out.
And that makes a lot of sense because in 2009, you had the planet Neptune squaring your midheaven. The midheaven, again, is that sensitive career angle. And Neptune by square can make things very confusing. Neptune rules fog and mist. So things can get a little unclear when Neptune is squaring our midheaven, which, by the way, happens once in a lifetime. And you also, in 2009, had the planet Uranus opposite your sun. And Uranus, by opposition, can be a little bit destabilizing because suddenly things have to change very, very quickly, and our status quo is no longer what it once was.
I also want to know about what's up with my Scorpios. Is it 2? I only have 2 in there.
Well, you have your midheaven in Scorpio, and then you have Jupiter, the Sun, Saturn, Mercury, and Pluto, all in the 8th house, which is the house that is ruled by Scorpio. Every birth chart has 10 celestial bodies in it, sun, moon, plus 8 planets. You have half of your chart in the 8th house, which belongs to Scorpio. And that's why you have such a very intense, deep, transformational, healing energy. That although you are a Virgo, don't get me wrong, astrology is kind of like a recipe. So yes, you have Virgo and you have Sagittarius moon, but there's also like a very healthy pinch here of Scorpio energy.
And then with this whole, like I told you, it was interesting that I turned on I love the Walter Mercado documentary, and I can really relate with him. I relate with Walter Mercado, and I can also relate with Quentin Crisp. Also, the Quentin Crisp, I can relate with these people. Older people I've always related with, and I like it. One of the lines was, I don't see you out there walking children in nature and taking care of old ladies, I said.
Oh.
Well, I like to listen to older people. I listen to them. I like listening to people. I'm taking notes. I'm always taking notes, and people don't realize that. They think I'm out there, but I'm always paying attention to all the details, taking all the notes. When I write my book, I'm going to have to do a chapter on each one of my friends, just to shake it up and make it fun, right?
Yeah.
But so the other night when I turned on the Turner Classic Movies, it was Virgo. They went on Virgo, and it was all this stuff talking about that things are starting to align for Virgos in the next year, and this year actually, and then the next year. I have noticed that in the falls when my career always really gets wilder. I always seem to really start moving for some reason.
Well, what's interesting, what I can tell you is that 2022, I was looking at your chart here, is going to be a very transformational year for you career-wise, because there's 2 things happening in your chart in 2022. One you haven't had before, and one, the last time it happened was 29 years ago. So these are not things that happen very frequently. One is that throughout all of 2022, the planet Pluto is going to be 60 degrees away from the midheaven. Again, the midheaven, that very sensitive degree where your house of career begins. When Pluto is 60 degrees away from the midheaven, there is a death and a rebirth, but a very positive one. Pluto is the planet that has to do with power and evolving and going to a whole new level. And then on January 17th of 2022, the planet Saturn is going to cross a very sensitive degree in your chart known as the ascendant, which kicks off a brand new 28-year cycle for you. And often Saturn crossing the ascendant is about kind of like the first layer of cement that you're laying down on a new foundation that you're building. Although this isn't starting for another 6 or 7 months or so, 2022 seems like the next chapter or evolution of your career.
This is all I've been working on is my career. My career is my love life and my life in a sense. I mean, that's the whole thing. I would like to have a house. I've been really starting to pray about that now in Long Beach.
Well, what's interesting too is that when Pluto is sextiling your midheaven, it's also simultaneously trining 120 degrees away from another sensitive angle in the chart called the IC. And the IC is about your physical home and your domestic life.
Right.
So with Pluto trining the IC, 2022 also is pointing to there being a shift in your living situation, more permanence. Saturn crossing the ascendant is about permanence. So there's also something about 2022. There's something about a sense of anchoring.
Well, the whole thing is I'm working on my career. So really then it's time for the next step. I feel that coming on, not the next step, my private dancer alum, so to speak. It's that time for my life. And I want to focus for this to last me the next 20 years.
What would you say is still on your professional bucket list or to-do list?
Fill stadiums. I want to fill stadiums. If it's being a comedian's already doing that, that's all what I've always wanted to do. I want to be on a world tour and filling stadiums. I mean, I always travel the world and I've been doing things. My goal is I made a doll. Got sent by the Boulay brothers, the little rag queens. They sent some little voodoo doll, but you make it yourself. So I went ahead and wrote my note, magnet for love, magnet for money, citrine dream. And then I put a pound sign, dollar sign, and some of them. Then I sewed in the Australian dollar. And I visualized when I was making this Australian dollar, because I really want to work there, of course, more, which I already am. And then Mexico is a big part of me. And it's a 100 peso bill from there. And then I put an American 5 and another one inside there. And I don't mind being in this country, but I just think that I'm bigger than just here.
And with that Jupiter conjunct the sun, the moon in Sagittarius, it shows too that part of your purpose in this life is actually travel is a huge part of it. You're meant to be international. And I do believe that in Australia, especially, you have a significant fan following.
Yes, Australia is really big. And they were actually working on some stuff with actually bringing the Browns down there and other things that were in the works. But because of this COVID, it's
Prior to COVID, you were touring a whole bunch. Did COVID just completely put the brakes on a lot of your projects too?
No, I mean, I did my projects from home. I just switched gears to the other projects that I couldn't normally do because I'd be on the roads. I focused on my dolls and I'd focus on the cameos, and there was the concerts, and things are constantly always something is coming, but not per se enough. Or I'm investing so much in my career. Like we invested in Holiday Sparkle. I had to invest in different things while filming out there, the rent and this and that. That is all to make the career better. And that's the thing, like with John Mark, he's not afraid to, like I am, to invest in ourselves and our projects. Like we both go 50-50. Like Queen with a Cause, we paid for that ourselves.
Oh, wow. You've known John Mark for ages, right? You guys go way back.
No, he was just one of the rhythms of my life, the right things popping up at the right time.
Oh, I must be thinking of Rod.
Yeah, Rod, I've known forever.
Oh, I see. Okay. So it sounds like these COVID times have been productive.
During COVID, this has been the hardest time that I've ever actually worked in my life. I stayed home and worked, but I mean, I've been able to work business-wise. Now we're just coming to where it's kind of like patterning out. The work isn't coming in like it was. Now I'm up in the air. It seems like that right now, which I just got to relax. I mean, I have a roof over my head. I'm fine. You know, I'm going to Bulgaria. I'm doing these things I want to do. But it's just like, I want the money in the bank. And I started doing that as well. I started with having somebody financials, taking care of my financial stuff. I'm doing that. And this year I got my LLC. I'm working on that, proper tax accountant. So I've been doing all this stuff with my business. Well, I would like to, create more of a boutique line with the product that I'm creating right now. There's a lot of polyesters. I want to go from that to the best of, towards all art created, which it is, but I mean cotton. And then I want done with other artists and hire other artists to work for me. And boutique and cooking, clean, everything, the whole like house and other businesses.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, looking at your chart for 2022, it looks like there's a very significant seismic shift in many areas of your life. Again, it's not starting for another 6 months, so I think using the next 6 months to prepare and get that going, because by the time that then we get to January, February of next year, it's kind of like the train leaves the station.
Oh, well, we've been preparing the whole time. I already meditated this morning. I already did my yoga.
I love it.
And I noticed in my yoga practice too, like it's actually the breathing. I can feel the difference in the breathing now is clicked, and I feel the breathing. Like I always do note to myself when I'm practicing my yoga too. And and the different rhythms I'm in, and I take time to meditate while I'm doing it. But I noticed that even while I'm in the car or when I'm driving now, the breathing is way different now and I can feel it. And I always work on connecting with my light, the light from within, from my heart, and that light. And I pray to see with the light, with prudence and wisdom, prudence, wisdom. I connect from my heart with prudence, wisdom, to see, talk, and hear. That's what I do. That's how I focus on that. Because I want to connect with people. And I really know what I'm doing. And I really care about our planet. And I want to connect with Mother Earth. And I'm also a healer. And I know that. I believe that.
When I think of people who I want to have on my podcast, it's people who I think have a fascinating life story to tell and who bring something unique to the world. And I also think it's why you have the following you have, because obviously season 1, the very beginnings of Drag Race, it wasn't what it is today, even season 1 of All Stars. And yet, despite that, in 2021, you are highly followed, you are beloved by the fan base. And I think it's because you have this authenticity. And also, I get the sense that you actually connect with people, even on Instagram, where, you have hundreds of thousands of followers, but you still make it so people feel seen.
Mm-hmm. What's important? That's what we're here to do. As an entertainer, it's a two-way street. I'm here to entertain, but it goes both ways. I can't do it without the response of the audience. Without them, I'm nothing. That's how that works. And I want to connect with them, and I mean, it's cool, but I'm not going to sit there and reply to stupid highs or whatever. And I do, I have to have boundaries, and I do create boundaries of stuff because I need to for sure do that in my life. I would have never thought that my career was going to be so big with social media. And something else is funny, because when I was outside praying and getting a little bit of sunbath here, is that I was talking about picking what my battles are going to be. Mine is travel. So I'm going to have to be one of those that's flying around on a plane. So that's my battle I'll go with, because that's environmentally some of our problems. That's something I was thinking about, because my career is going to consist of traveling.
There's some really interesting analyses that point to the fact that this idea of personal responsibility, while yes, it does help, the vast majority of the mess that we're in environmentally is because of corporate practices. But corporations love when they're like, well, it's your fault for flying. And meanwhile, it's like, well, but meanwhile, you're dumping a bunch of crap into the oceans.
Yeah, thank you. And here where I live, there's a lot of activity going on, but there's all the bay system and everything. And there's all these plants pumping junk into the water. And there is sightings of UFOs and stuff. I haven't seen any myself, whatever, but I keep hearing people keep talking about it. But I'm thinking it has to do with the water.
Oh, interesting.
Because they use the water. I mean, all this alien shows or whatever, any TV show, whatever it talks about, they're always in the water. There's something that has to do with the water here for sure. There's something going on with the water. And water's always been a big part of my life as well. I dream about water. And then I go into dreams where I finally talked about this dream. I sometimes deal with my Brooks College experience of living in the dorms that we were in. There was kind of it's like a hotel or an institution, that kind of a setup and it supposedly was before, rumor has it, in the past, the building. But I always go down the stairs, like to throw the garbage or in a dark something, always down. Sometimes it's the visual of pit. It can be dark, but nothing bad comes out. Or nothing comes out, or I never go in there. And I never go there, but I'm in that area and I know it's going to be kind of scary. But now I'm not scared anymore. I just know that I'm not scared, but I just know that keeps something's interesting with that. And then another dream I've had all my life is reoccurring is fish and water, but they're like goldfish and they're poisonous fish. There's something bad about the fish. They never attack me. I never get attacked, but they always have like a kind of teeth or something. Or a vivid dream I remember is the graveyards, like real small with this one, but here we have those graveyards where it's all flat and they have the vases and it's real pretty. If you see out there's all these plastic silk flowers out there and it looks real pretty. But I had a dream and it's like a foot of water and the water's right above, like the flowers are sticking up to the water, the plaque, and there's a foot of water over it and all that. But that one always, and it seems to be this water dreams.
Which is so fascinating because, again, with all that 8th house influence, Scorpio is a water sign. Scorpio is also about the darkness. It seems like all your dreams are kind of about getting you in tune or aligned to all that Scorpio energy that's so prevalent in your chart.
And I have lots of my best friends, lots of friends are Scorpios. In fact, one of the friends that I'm going to go see in Bulgaria, he's a Scorpio as well. And he finds me super encouraging and inspiring as well spiritually. Scorpio. And I can kind of tell. I was sitting with this one woman when I was describing the way she was doing something for a party and how she brought out the meat, certain meat for them and certain meat for her family. And I was like, "You're a Scorpio." And she goes, "Yes." And I said, "Uh-huh, I knew it." because my mom does that kind of stuff. And then there's this kind of retreat thing they like to do. And now I'm starting to learn how to not answer the phone as much anymore sometimes, or I do like to have my personal time. But I think all humans like that. So.
And by the way, Bulgaria, is that for work? Are you doing something work related there?
Pleasure, friendships.
Oh, okay. Got it.
The most interesting thing is I connected with the Bulgarians. They were the immigrant workforce in Provincetown, and I was there 2 years ago. In 2019, I hit off with the Bulgarians. We connect on a deep level.
Which makes so much sense for a Sagittarius moon, because Sagittarius moons often have this calling or this need to connect with other countries and foreign culture. So that totally lights up your chart. I often say that when we do things or meet people in our life who light up our chart, we feel that energy and it just aligns and it makes us feel good.
I've always known, like, for example, people come into our lives for sure for a reason. And right now, I really believe that. And more than ever, I know when I connect with people, even if I know when I connect or I can tell if someone that the energy is good, I'm really good at reading energies. And also, if something's not going right, I don't really have to worry about it. Like if I was going on a trip and somebody doesn't go with me that was supposed to accompany me, because I like to be a companion. I have to have a companion go with me. That's the way it is. It's going to get me out, and I don't want to do everything, but I want to go out, and it just makes me feel more comfortable with someone with me. But someone always comes into my life at the right place or the right time. Or if I go by myself, I end up meeting the right people, and then now I'm friends with them. There's always that going on. But I also have decided too that I'm going to let people know now if they're special or not, to what my body's saying, that they're a special person, that they have special traits. Because I just feel that I can tell that this is a special person. They have a bigger mission. There's something unique about them. And I want to be around that. And I want to help be part of that. Just let them know their worth, that there's something unique. For example, my friend Martine, he's over there, he's only 21, 22 now. His personality is just so infectious and so lovely and really nice. And it's like, that is what sells. That is what is important. You have a bigger mission than going and studying, wanting to get married now and wanting to go and be a police officer. You have a bigger mission.
The eighth house, which you have so much of an eighth house emphasis, is about healing, but also about intuition. Whether you realize it or not, your intuition is very on point. And I don't know if you've had moments in your life where maybe on the outside or rationally something didn't make sense, but intuitively it did.
I go by my intuition a lot more. It's what I normally do. Is my intuition. Even if I don't, it seems to go that. I don't think things out. I don't do anything too spontaneous, but I do believe in having fun and making things fun. Like you said, of course, it has to be fun.
I feel like you probably are very attuned with the energy.
I feel attuned. Like the other day, I got a vibration that I know we're in a shit show and this has happened before through history, but recently, finally, I felt that okay, I think things are going to start lifting. Just in the yin and the yang, something has got to give. Like Walter Mercado with that documentary, I've watched that one over and over and over because I just really enjoyed him. And he says that when you push, something's going to have to come up.
But you were saying that you believe in making things fun.
I do make jokes. That way I make fun of like AIDS. Some people would have a problem because I made fun of AIDS. Okay, let's rewind. Back in 1985, when AIDS was, all over and getting more national publicity and everything. And I'm a little kid on the bus, and we're on there and we're licking a jelly someone was sharing a Jelly Rancher, one of those stick ones, Jolly Ranchers. And the other kid says, "Oh, don't lick that. You're going to get AIDS." Well, darling, AIDS is affecting my life as well. Okay, then step 2, I'm gay. AIDS affects our lives, and we're called, "Hey, faggot, you're going to get AIDS." So AIDS has been affecting my life through many other ways. I might not be infected with it, but it's still infecting my life. So when I make my age jokes and stuff, I can back it up with that now, which, makes sense. It affects all of our lives, and it affects my lives. And if everything's to me made fun of.
With the sun conjunct Jupiter, it's about don't take things too seriously. With that Scorpio in the midheaven, it's like laughing at things that people don't even want to talk about. It's one of the ways that you bring things out into the open and make people think about things. But again, not everybody is at that level. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier, that I think to understand your jokes, there has to be an awareness and an understanding of something, kind of like Sarah Silverman.
Yes, all that kind of stuff, for sure.
So as we wrap up, I do have just one Drag Race question, like a mystery that I'm hoping you can solve for me. Okay. When you were on All Stars 1, at one point during the judges' critiques, Michelle alluded to you reading the judges, and your response was,
"If I was going to read, I can talk about that line on someone's neck."
What was that in reference to? Because I never figured it out.
Okay, let it be known. Let's just let it be known. Morgan McMichaels and I have been friends for a long time. Morgan McMichael and I started our career together. But Morgan McMichael runs around stressing everybody out and all the time stressing everybody out. And she lives in chaos. I don't know why, but that's how she likes to live. And in fact, on season 1, we were given flip cams.
Oh, really?
And I was one of the only people that I'm friendly with camera. I know my face. I'm a Hollywood royalty, darling. No, but I'm into showbiz. So I was okay. And I like film and cinema. I love it. So I was the only one that would actually film myself every morning. So I was having those issues with a caution. There was a lot of negativity coming from her. So what I did was I said on there, I have two friends of mine, Mayhem Miller and Morgan McMichaels. And Morgan, they would kick her ass if they knew. They would kick her ass in. If we were together in a group of girls and I was being mistreated like that, they would,
take care of it.
Defend for me. Yeah, we're friends. That's not how the business works, But Morgan, I've known Morgan for a while. So she used to not blend her makeup. And another queen of mine, friend of mine, Phyllis Navidad from the Shits and Giggles Day in around 2009 and everything, was saying, "Oh, you're reading. You're always reading." Well, I had just worked the weekend with Morgan, and she was being crazy and throwing these wild fits and really being mean. And I thought to myself, how can you be so fucking mean when you don't even fucking blend your makeup? And the other queens, Chad Michaels knew who I was talking about when he was on. He said, "I know who you're talking about. I know what you're talking about." Well, because they were all working together, and they would even tell her, "Why are you not blending your makeup?" And these hard lines, wigs, which is a whole thing within itself now too. I'd rather a hard line than a lace front now, to be honest with you. Yeah, so that's how that happened. And then I just pull things out of I have a bag full of tricks. People think that I just, oh yeah. Well, if I was to, I don't want to go back on there, to be honest with you. I hear the contracts are another binding thing too with that. That's really not good at all. And I do find that show to be a Black exploitation show. I mean, because they don't do anything about the hate mail that comes to Bob, the drag queen, or to Jasmine Masters or anything. And RuPaul being Black, which I don't understand, African American, I don't understand how he doesn't say anything. And then these people are saying all these racial slurs when the leader of the show is Black, African American. So.
I totally get it. And I also think that, I've never been on a reality show, but I also would imagine that at some point you kind of are left with, well, how am I going to get edited? Because obviously with editing, of course, yes, you say whatever you say. They can't make you say something you didn't say. But the way it's edited can make the fan base love you or not like you. And then that can affect your career.
Thank you. That was the major issue for me when I left season 1. I was like, oh shit, I'm in their hands. But luckily I always come the underdog, the one, which the unsung hero, which is wonderful. I'm happy about that. And that's the same thing when we were doing All Stars, season 1, All Stars, myself and Yara were placating to the cameras because on season 1, they weren't that advanced on the editing as far as clipping things and moving them around, because they take voice clips and move them around too. Like when I walked in the room, I never said Tootsie Lou. I said, "Your father fucked Marlena Dietrich." I didn't say my father, unless I was too heated that I might have said that. But I told her your father. I didn't say my father, because somebody had come into the room and told me all her private stories. One of the editors, not editor, a producer for the show, Untucked, came and told me all her Weeping Willow story of this and that. And okay, well, I listened, and then I let her have it. But Yara and I were talking to the cameras, because on season 1, I would get real angry and I would say things, and they're like, "Well, you can talk right now all you want, but we're not recording this, and it's not gonna." They weren't there yet. But after we came back, Yara and I were thinking, okay, well, we're going to say everything to the camera. We're going to sabotage them. So, but so they edited all that, and that's how that happened. But they're doing that big time now. And apparently these contracts are so binding, I don't think it's worth it. We were signed to these contracts way back, but I feel World of Wonder is a lazy production company. I've studied also World of Wonder for a long time. I've been a RuPaul fan for a long time, since 90s, since he came out with he was on the Oprah show, and then Foxy Lady came out that fall. And then he had his own TV show that fall.
On VH1.
Yeah, VH1. I watched all 3 seasons, and I was noticing the details, how it would change, and how one time he'd come and talk to an audience. The next season changed because I might have been too aggressive for people to handle that kind of queen talk on a main level. And so there was always changing. And apparently I was told through through them that he was cut from VH1. They called it the Black Drag Queen channel. So they actually cut it the third season. After the third season, that's why he wasn't brought back. You know, they always made it seem like with Molten Burl that was the end of his career or whatever, which that's just stupid gossip. His career kept going. He did take a dive in a sense because he's a lazy performer, and was doing 2 cruise ships and stuff. You know, I'm always paying attention to details. And I was like, well, that he took from Paris is Burning, and that he took from there. And then this has been repeated over here. And it's like, oh, okay. I wasn't feeling as encouraged. You know,
with all that Virgo and that Scorpio, I would say that your threshold for BS is extremely low.
I know. And I just wish I could speak out sometimes more, but I guess I do it at the right time.
Yeah. Well, Virgo is very measured. You know when to say and when to not, right?
Right. And like as a child, they called me satellite ears, you know, where they would always tell me, oh, my parents, them, because we worked in the cartel and this kind of fringe of the cartel and stuff. My parents, my father, and it's not that pretty of a story, but anyhow, it's a wild story. But I would listen. My dad always let me in on what was going on with them and this and that. But I would hear, and I could always, and they'd call me satellite ears. And then also I would have by certain people with too tight lip or whatever, they would call maybe some squares, if you want to call it that. They would say that I was going to get punched in the mouth or something because of the way I talk, because I am very blunt, I guess, in this way, or not blunt, but, you know, I am paying attention. I can fight and talk back. Or my comedy. I feel that I was in the wrong, not nurturing with that kind of a life. But now I'm in the right place to be nurtured, and I do have a voice, and I'm going to last into the future for being an icon and helping others out. And that's beautiful.
Absolutely. And I think that will always be your legacy.
And I think it's funny, satellite ears will look at him. Now he's on the satellite, right?
Flying around and living his best life.
Yeah, living the fantasy, honey, with a Z.
Well, listen, thank you so much for your time and for this really lovely conversation.
Oh, thank you.
Tell my listeners how they can connect with you and learn more about you.
Planet Tammie is my website, my web page. It's also the store in the domain, and it has links to Cameo, and it has links to the YouTube channel and everything. It's a full house, Planet Tammie. So just go to Planet Tammie and go from there. That's what I would suggest. There's also my Instagram, and then I have a TikTok, which I make the videos, but I don't release them. Someone's managing. Jose Guzman Colon, the photographer, Boricua, he's actually managing for me. And the Browns will be on, it's going to be on Apple TV this time.
Oh, so on Amazon and Apple, or it's not going to be on Amazon?
I think it might be on Apple TV now. I think it's Apple instead of Amazon. I know the other Browns is on there right now. And then there's Holiday Sparkle if you're feeling like a little Christmas in July.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Okay, so Holiday Sparkle and the Browns. Terrific.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everybody. I highly recommend you check out Tammie's social media, her songs, her web series. You will be entertained and learn some new things as well. And that does it for this Chart and Chat episode. You can follow me on Instagram at Astrology with Andy. And remember, as above, so below. Thanks for listening. See you soon.